BYD was often called the Tesla killer, but the tables have turned. Their sales are cratering, leaving experts scratching their heads. Is this a temporary blip or a sign of deeper trouble for the entire Chinese electric vehicle industry? In this video, we'll break down the factors contributing to BYD's downfall and explore the available data. So without much ado, let's get right in. EV makers feel the pinch as their growth hit a major roadblock over the past year. The market is flooded, and even the top players struggle to move their cars. BYD in particular took a massive hit as the Chinese market saw a sharp decline in demand. Their sales decreased in February, and it's not looking good. You've probably heard about the rough patch the Chinese EV industry is going through. Supply chain issues, a price war, and production inefficiencies have all contributed to the slump. But what's surprising is that even the big dogs like BYD are feeling the squeeze. In February alone, they sold just around 50,000 EVs, a good 40% drop from the previous month. You might be thinking, hey, China has always had a slow month in February, and you'd be right to some extent. But the drop is huge when you look at the numbers from a year ago. The current state of things is very bad, as sales dropped by 37% compared to February 2023. Just 2 years ago, BYD was on top of the world, with some claiming that it sold more EVs than Tesla. It wasn't even close to where they are now regarding electric car models and prices. Back then, their inventory was sparse, and the products just weren't up to snuff. But fast forward to today, and BYD's lineup is stronger than ever, with prices that'll make your jaw drop. They've slashed prices left and right, yet their sales have dropped faster than a lead balloon. But when you put all your eggs in one basket, you will feel the heat when things go south. And are things heating up in China? There's a full-blown war happening, and according to the CEO of Xpeng, it's nothing short of a bloodbath. And guess who's caught in the crossfire? Yes, you guessed it. BYD. I've been saying it for a while now, folks. Relying too heavily on one market is a recipe for disaster. Sure, BYD are making strides in places like Australia and Thailand, but they've dropped the ball regarding Europe. Now, I'm not saying this came out of nowhere. I've been sounding the alarm bells for a minute now, warning that this day might come. And here we are, staring at a major sales slump. It's a tough pill, especially considering how hard BYD's been pushing their electric vehicles. But sometimes, you can't outrun the storm no matter how hard you push. BYD isn't any ordinary car brand. It's a big player in the electric vehicle, EV industry, with some of the most cutting-edge battery technologies. But they're not just about EVs. They're also a key player in the plug-in hybrid sector. However, recent data shows that even their plug-in hybrids have taken a hit, experiencing a significant drop in sales compared to the previous year. BYD managed to move around 66,000 units last month, which is a 34% decrease year over year. When you tally up their EVs and plug-in hybrids, BYD sold nearly 122,000 units last month, but that's a 36% decrease compared to the previous year. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, the Chinese market. While the EV slowdown is a global trend affecting many regions, the Chinese market seems to feel the squeeze more than others. A combination of factors is at play here, including oversupply and limitations in the domestic market. Dealer lots are overflowing with inventory, and car makers are feeling the pressure to move units off the lots. How are they doing it? By slashing prices, of course. It's a classic case of supply and demand. When supply outweighs demand, prices drop. And that's exactly what's happening in the Chinese EV market. And there's been a recent report about a cargo ship docked in Europe with 5,000 electric cars. Sounds promising, right? While having 5,000 electric cars in Europe is certainly good news, there's a catch. Until BYD gets serious about pricing its cars affordably and marketing them properly in Europe, it's not going to sell like hotcakes. And trust me, it hasn't been selling. In Germany, which happens to be the largest EV market in Europe, BYD's sales are virtually non-existent. They've got models up for sale, but they're just too darn expensive for the average buyer. BYD's biggest mistake is relying too much on the Chinese market. It hasn't done a good job of expanding its market reach, even though it is known around the world as an EV leader with cutting-edge products and high sales numbers. It's crazy that 95% of its cars are still sold in China. BYD has tried to expand into other markets, such as Australia and New Zealand, but these efforts have not been very successful. Even though BYD has a number of models available in Europe, the company has had a hard time establishing a strong base, mostly because it can't offer EVs at competitive prices. Now that there are signs that the Chinese market is growing less quickly, BYD is in a tough spot. After years of fast growth, the recent slowdown was kind of expected. During that time, electric cars and plug-in hybrids comprised 37% of the Chinese auto market, but the growth rate has slowed down considerably. In 2023, plug-in cars will only have grown by 46%. This slowdown will likely last until 2024, when growth is expected to be even slower. When only EVs are considered, things look even worse, with growth from one year to the next around 31%. Because of this, electric vehicles, EVs, now make up 25% of the market, while plug-in hybrids make up 12%. BYD's latest decision to buy back its own shares shows that the Chinese electric vehicle market is having a hard time. Since stocks are going down, the buyback is meant to restore investor trust and calm things down. The fact that plug-in hybrids have grown by 80% in the past year tells us a lot about what Chinese customers like. Based on this growth trend, customers aren't quite ready to switch away from internal combustion engines. Instead, they are looking for ways to temporarily circumvent the problem. Plug-in hybrids are a cheaper and more convenient option for fully electric vehicles, EVs. Because of this, the growth of EVs is likely to keep slowing down in 2024, which is in line with world trends. Even though China first had a huge EV industry boom, with over 500 registered EV makers, the market has become too full in recent years. Because there are so many EV makers now, there is a lot of competition and too many cars on the market, making the problems the industry faces even worse. In fact, many of these companies are having a hard time breaking into the market, and many aren't even selling any cars. Reports say that, shockingly, 1/3 of the remaining EV makers sell less than 500 cars every 3 months, showing how unstable the industry is. As a result, experts think that many businesses will soon have to file for bankruptcy because they can't keep going when the market slows down. EV startups in China have already started going bankrupt in large numbers, which means the industry is about to face some tough times. It's thought that only a few EV companies will make it through this rough patch. The top 10 sellers have an amazing 80% of the market. Also, data shows that only 20 companies use 60% or more of their production capacity, which shows the difficulty of the field. What's particularly intriguing is that among the companies that filed for bankruptcy, many were once considered big names and promising players in the Chinese automotive industry. Take Evergrande New Energy Auto, for instance. As a part of the Evergrande Group, one of China's largest conglomerates, this startup had seemingly unlimited resources, with investments amounting to billions of dollars. However, despite its substantial backing, the company failed to establish a significant presence in the market and struggled to achieve decent sales numbers. In fact, its sales performance was so dismal that when considering all investments, the company reportedly lost $177 million on every EV it sold during its brief production history. Similarly, once ahead of Tesla in terms of sales numbers a decade ago, companies like Line recently declared bankruptcy. The list of notable casualties in the industry includes Neutron, which succumbed to financial woes despite impressive technological advancements and a starting capacity of over $5 billion. With approximately 90 EV makers in China, most are operating well below their production capacity. Only 20 companies utilize 60% or more of their production capacity, highlighting the market's oversaturation. The top 10 EV sellers dominate 80% of the Chinese market, leaving smaller players in a precarious position. While established companies like BYD may weather the storm, many others are headed toward a similar fate. So what's next for BYD? Well, that's anyone's guess. Maybe they'll bounce back stronger than ever, or maybe they'll need to rethink their strategy. Want more? Check out our channel for more interesting videos, and don't forget to subscribe.